All right. Welcome to another narration of mine. Settle in for a moment. This is where the voices I carry meet the version of the truth most people avoid, and where the things we uncover tend to stay with us long after the story ends. Only the brave souls and the fearless ones stay until the end. I don't talk about my brother, not to anyone, not even to my wife, and we've been married 8 years now. She just knows that I had a brother, and that he died when I was 10. That's it. No pictures of him, no grave visits. I don't even say his name. It's not that I don't remember him. I do. I remember everything. The way he looked when he was mad. The way he used to pinch the inside of my arm when our parents weren't looking. The things he said when the lights were out and we were supposed to be sleeping. I remember his face the day he died. How blue his lips were. How wide his eyes were. And most of all, I remember that he was smiling. His name was Kyle. He was 12. And when we were kids, Kyle was the kind of older brother that no one believed could be bad. Straight A's, clean clothes, adults loved him. But when they weren't around, Kyle changed. He'd do this thing where he'd wake me up in the middle of the night, put his hand over my mouth, and whisper things in my ear. Things I didn't understand at the time. Graphic stuff. Violent stuff. Sometimes sexual. He'd tell me what he wanted to do to people, what he did to our neighbor's cat when it disappeared. And I never told. Because Kyle told me if I did, he'd cut my tongue out in my sleep. Then came the day of the hike. We were on a camping trip with our dad, this little forest park in Maine, near the Canadian border. Dad was a heavy drinker back then. He'd disappear for hours into the woods with a flask and a joint, and tell us not to leave the campsite. Kyle thought it'd be funny to go hiking without telling him. Said we'd find a dead body, like in Stand By Me. I didn't want to go, but Kyle said he'd smear raccoon blood on my pillow if I stayed behind. We went maybe 3 miles up the trail when he started to act weird. Kept stopping and looking over his shoulder like he heard something behind us. Then he started laughing. Not like a ha-ha laugh, like giggling under his breath. We got to this overlook, big rocky cliff with a view of the river. He sat down at the edge and patted the ground next to him. Then he told me something I haven't told anyone. Not until now. He said, "I've been dreaming about killing you." I froze, thought he was joking, but he just stared at me, eyes not blinking, and said it again, quieter this time. "I've been dreaming about it for months. I see your face when it happens, all red and puffy like a squeezed tomato." I turned to run. He tackled me, slammed my head on the ground. I was small, tiny for 10, and he was already built like a teenager. He got on top of me, knees on my arms, and pulled a knife out of his sock. I remember screaming. I remember peeing myself. And then something happened. I don't know how to explain it. I saw his eyes go blank, like a seizure or something, and he rolled off me, convulsing. His arms thrashed, legs kicking like he was being electrocuted. He screamed, high-pitched, like something inside him was breaking loose. Then he started crawling toward the edge of the cliff. I swear I didn't push him, but he went over, head first. Didn't even put his arms out. He hit the rocks below. They said his skull shattered on impact. They found me 3 hours later, curled up in a ball, covered in blood and piss, whispering the word knife over and over again. They didn't find the knife. That night, I had dreams I never talked about. Dreams where Kyle's body stood up, with its head flopping backward, neck snapped. And he started walking through the woods, looking for me. Dreams where he talked without moving his lips, his voice coming out wet and hollow, telling me it wasn't over, that he wasn't done. The dreams faded as I got older. I shoved them down like trash under the bed. Grew up. Got married. Had kids. Until last night. I was sleeping in our room. My wife was visiting her sister out of town. I've always hated being alone in the house. It's too quiet. And when it's quiet, I remember the things Kyle used to whisper when we were kids. Anyway, I woke up at 3:13 a.m. My throat felt tight, like I had something lodged in it. I sat up, coughing, gasping for air. That's when I saw him. He was standing at the foot of the bed. Kyle. Same face. Same bowl haircut. Same ratty red hoodie he wore the day he died. His eyes were sunken in, skin pale gray, veins bulging around his temples. His mouth didn't move, but I felt what he was saying, like it was being funneled into my brain. You should have let me finish. Then he lunged. His hands were cold, not like winter cold, like refrigerated meat cold. His thumbs went straight for my windpipe and pressed hard. I kicked, I thrashed, my fingers clawed at his arms, and that's when I felt it. His skin wasn't skin. It was dry, papery, like old paint peeling off the wall. His grip didn't let up. I remember thinking, this is it. I'm going to die in my brimstone at 37 by the hands of my dead brother, who's been gone for 2.5 decades. Then he was gone, just like that. I sat up, choking, sweating, tears pouring down my face. I flipped on every light in the room, checked the locks, called 911, even though I sounded insane. The cops came, checked the place. Nothing was disturbed. Nothing was missing. Doors locked. Windows shut. Except my neck. When I showed the officer the marks, he paused. They were obvious. Purple and red. Fingers spaced out just right. Deep indentations. One of the younger cops actually stepped back when he saw it. They checked the security cameras, 2 in the house, 1 in the hallway, and 1 outside the bedroom. Nothing. Not a damn thing. Not a flicker. not a shadow. No one entered or left. But I know what I saw, and I know what I felt. Kyle came back, and he tried to finish what he started. After the cops left that night, I didn't sleep. I just sat on the edge of the bed, lights on, blinds drawn, trying to make sense of what the hell happened. Every few minutes, I'd touch my neck, like maybe the marks would be gone. But they weren't. They were still there, still warm, still fresh. And I swear to God, I could still feel his hands. Like my body remembered the pressure. Like my skin still had the memory of how his fingers dug in. Around 6 a.m., the house got quiet in a different kind of way. Not the usual morning calm. It was dead. Like every clock had stopped ticking. The fridge stopped humming. The birds didn't sing. I walked from room to room like a man walking through a crime scene, just trying to prove to myself that I was still awake, still alive, that it had really happened, and I hadn't dreamed the whole thing. That's when I noticed the door to the basement was open. I never leave that door open, not even a crack. We have 2 kids, 7 and 4, and I'm paranoid about them falling down the stairs or messing with the breaker box. But that morning, it was wide open. I stood at the top of the steps and stared down. It was pitch black. Our basement light's been busted for over a year. I've been meaning to fix it, but life just gets in the way. So I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and started down. Let me just say this real quick. I've always hated the basement in this house. From the day we moved in, the ceilings are low, the air smells like wet wood and copper, and the foundation walls look like they were scratched up by something that didn't have nails, just bone. I always assumed it was just wear and tear, or rats, or whatever the hell. But now, after last night, every mark looked deliberate, like someone, or something, had been trying to get out. I made it halfway down the stairs when I saw something that made my chest lock up. There were footprints on the concrete floor, bare, dirty, human-sized, and leading from the center of the basement to the stairs, right to where I was standing. The worst part? There was a second set of prints, smaller, lighter, following behind the first set, but staggered, like whoever made them had been dragged. I reached the bottom step and aimed my flashlight around the room. The light passed over old boxes, holiday decorations, a folded-up treadmill, and then it landed on something that made me gag. In the far corner of the basement was a pile of clothes, Kyle's clothes, the exact outfit he'd been wearing when he died. Dirty red hoodie, cargo shorts, one sock, and the same old beat-up Nikes he used to wear everywhere. They were laid out like someone had just stepped out of them. Hoodie on top, shirt under it, shorts folded neatly, shoes side by side. And right on top of the pile was a Polaroid photo. It was a picture of me. but not from when I was 10. This was taken recently, like within the last few weeks. I was sitting on the living room couch, wearing the same hoodie I had on last weekend, holding a beer and watching TV. I didn't even know anyone had taken it. It was too close, too sharp. No window angle could have caught that shot. That photo was taken from inside my house. I nearly threw up right there. My heart was pounding so loud I couldn't hear myself breathe. I turned and bolted up the stairs, slammed the door shut, and locked it. Then I did something I haven't done since I was a kid. I sat in the hallway, curled up with my back against the wall, knees to my chest. And I cried, not because I was scared. Yeah, I was scared. But it was deeper than that. It was familiar. That same feeling I used to get when Kyle would sneak into my room at night and whisper in my ear. That feeling of being watched by someone who loved you just enough to hate you. After I pulled myself together, I checked the kids' room. They were fine. Both sound asleep. No bruises. No weird shadows on the baby monitor. Thank God. I told myself whatever this was, it was coming for me. I called in sick to work, told my wife I wasn't feeling well. She offered to come home early, and I told her no. I couldn't explain why, but I didn't want her here. Not yet. I needed time to figure out what the hell was happening. Around noon, I decided to do something I hadn't done since the funeral. I called my dad. I won't bore you with the whole conversation, but here's the important part. He didn't sound surprised. Not at all. When I told him what happened, there was this long pause, and then he said something that chilled me to the bone. Did he touch your neck again? Again. That word. I asked him what the hell he meant, and he got real quiet. Then he hung up. I tried calling back. No answer. Called 3 more times before his phone went straight to voicemail. And that was it. Nothing since. That night, I made a decision. I pulled out an old cardboard box from the attic labeled Kyle's stuff. I hadn't opened it in 25 years. It was all there. School pictures, soccer trophies, drawings, a half-used journal. I almost stopped reading after the first few entries. It was normal kid stuff. Then I flipped to the last page. That's when I found the drawing. It was a pencil sketch of a man lying in bed, in the dark, mouth open, eyes wide in terror. Kneeling on top of the man was a creature. At first, I thought it was just Kyle drawing himself in one of his dreams, but the longer I stared at it, the more wrong it felt. The thing on top wasn't human. It had Kyle's face, sure. Same smirk, same eyes. But the body was long, too long. Arms stretching to the man's knees, fingers hooked like claws. Its back was bent backward, like it had been broken and never healed right. Underneath the drawing, scrawled in shaky handwriting, were 3 words. He showed me. That night, I slept with every light in the house on. Didn't help. because around 2:30 a.m., I heard someone walking in the hallway. And this time, it wasn't just me who heard it. My son started screaming. My son's scream didn't sound like a normal kid scared of the dark kind of thing. It was sharp, panicked, the kind of scream that makes your whole body go cold because you know it's coming from pure terror, not a nightmare. I sprinted down the hallway so fast, I slipped on the hardwood and smashed my shoulder into the wall. Didn't matter. I got to his door, threw it open, and he was sitting upright in bed, with tears running down his face, pointing at the doorway, like something had been standing there minutes, maybe seconds, before I got to him. I picked him up, trying to calm him down, asking what he saw. And at first, he couldn't even talk. His mouth opened and closed like he was choking on the words. Finally, he whispered, "Someone was watching me." My stomach dropped so fast, I felt dizzy. I asked him what the person looked like. He said, he had a messed up neck. That was it. I froze. I actually felt my legs almost give out. My brother's body, when they found it. It was the neck that had taken the brunt of the fall. I wasn't supposed to have seen it, but I peeked under the tarp back then. Just once. And that image has stayed glued to my brain ever since. I tucked my kid against my chest and carried him through the hallway while I checked every room, every closet, every corner of the house. Nothing. Not a sound, not a movement, not even a draft. I put him back to bed once he finally stopped sobbing, turned on the nightlight, and sat in the hallway for over an hour, just listening. At some point, I realized the basement door was cracked open again. Just a sliver. But it was open. I didn't go down there. Not yet. I just closed it carefully and locked it. The rest of the night felt stretched out, longer than it should have been. Every noise was too loud. Every shadow felt like it leaned toward me. I sat on the couch in the living room, holding a baseball bat I grabbed from the garage. I kept replaying the night in my head, like scenes from a movie I didn't want to watch. My breathing kept coming out shaky, and my hands wouldn't stop trembling, no matter what I did. Around sunrise, I got this weird heaviness in my gut, like I wasn't supposed to stay in the house anymore, like something was waiting for me to be alone again. So I woke the kids, packed them in the car, and took them to my parents' house. My wife was coming back later that evening, and I didn't want her walking into whatever nightmare was happening in our home. When we got to my parents' place, my mom rushed to hug the kids, but didn't look at me. My dad wasn't even downstairs. The house felt off. I walked around until I found him on the back porch smoking. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Before I could say a word, he just muttered, "I told your mother this was going to happen eventually." I asked him what the hell that meant, and he just stared at me. This long, blank stare, like he was trying to decide whether to tell me the truth or pretend everything was normal and hope it went away. Finally, he said, "When you were little, you used to wake up with bruises around your neck. Small ones, like fingerprints. You don't remember, but we do." I told him I had no memory of that, not even a flash. He nodded, like he already expected that answer. Then he dropped something else on me, something I wish to God he'd never said at all. "When Kyle died, you told me he was trying to hurt you. But that wasn't the first time you said something like that. You said it a lot growing up." Then he paused. "And others saw things too." I got chills straight up my spine. "What do you mean, others?" He rubbed his hands over his face. "Your grandmother. She said Kyle wasn't born right. Said there was something in him that wasn't supposed to be there. Said she saw him standing over you at night, not moving, just tilting his head like he was listening to something." My heart felt like it stopped. My dad put out his cigarette and looked me dead in the eyes. "She said he wasn't alone." I didn't even know what to say. My thoughts felt scrambled, like static buzzing between my ears. Before I could ask anything else, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from my home security system. Motion detected in the hallway. I opened the camera feed. At first, it was just darkness. Then the hallway light flickered like someone walked under it. Then, complete stillness. I almost brushed it off until something at the far end of the hallway caught my eye. A hand. Not a whole arm. Just a hand. Pressed flat against the wall, sliding down slowly, fingers leaving faint streaks on the paint. The shape of the hand looked wrong too, longer than it should have been, knuckles too high, thumb too low. The live feed cut out. It just went black. My dad saw my face and asked what happened. All I said was, "We need to go back to my house." When we got there, everything was quiet. Too quiet. I left the kids with my mom in the driveway, and my dad followed me inside. The house smelled stale and metallic, like old pennies. We moved room to room, and nothing seemed touched. But when we got to the hallway, my dad stopped abruptly. On the wall, where I saw that hand slide down, were 5 streaks. 5 long, dark streaks. Not blood. Not dirt. Something between the two. Thick. Dry. Stained into the paint like it had soaked in. My dad didn't speak. He just exhaled shakily, turned, and walked straight to the basement door. He didn't warn me, didn't explain. He just unlocked it, opened it, and went down first. I should have stopped him, because the moment we reached the bottom step, the smell hit us. Rot, damp wood, something old, something that had been waiting. And in the center of the floor, illuminated by the weak glow of my phone flashlight, was a message scrawled across the concrete. It was written in long, drag mark letters. "I know you remember." But that wasn't the part that sent me back up the stairs in full panic. It was what was lying right under the words. Another Polaroid. This time, it wasn't of me. It was of my son, sleeping, in his bed, taken from inches away. Someone, or something, had been in his room again. Someone who knew exactly how to get past the cameras. Someone who knew this house better than all of us. I didn't want to touch the Polaroid. Even looking at it made my skin crawl, like the picture itself was contaminated. My dad grabbed it before I could say anything and held it under the flashlight. His hand started shaking the second he saw it. He whispered, "This is my fault." I had never heard him talk like that, not even when he used to drink, not when my parents almost divorced, not when we buried Kyle. But right then, down in that cold basement, he sounded like a man admitting he'd done something so big and so terrible that he'd spent 25 years waiting for it to catch up. I asked him what he meant. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked to the far corner of the basement, the one with the scratches on the foundation walls, ran his hand along the grooves and said, "These weren't here when we moved in. They started a month after Kyle died." My stomach twisted. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you were just a kid." Then he looked at me with this hollow expression. And because I didn't want to believe what I saw. That's when I knew something was coming. Something he'd been holding on to for decades. He motioned for me to sit on the bottom step. He stood in front of me, arms crossed, breathing heavy. "When you were little," he said quietly, "you didn't wake up screaming because of nightmares. You woke up screaming because Kyle was standing in the doorway almost every night." My mouth went dry. "You don't remember it now. Trauma buries things. But every night for months, you'd run to our room, shaking, and saying Kyle was trying to take you somewhere. You said he stood beside your bed and told you to follow him." My hands started trembling. "You said his eyes were wrong, that something was behind them, looking through them." I felt my whole chest tighten. I asked him why nobody ever told me any of this. He sighed. "Because when we tried to talk to you about it years later, you'd shut down completely. You'd freeze, stare at the floor, and your breathing would get all messed up, like your body remembered something your mind didn't." My dad rubbed his forehead, pacing a little like he wanted to avoid my eyes. "But the worst thing wasn't what you said about Kyle. It was what your grandmother said about Kyle." I swallowed hard. "What did she say?" He stared at the floor. "She said she once saw your brother talking to someone in your bedroom. Someone who wasn't there." My mouth went cold. "She said Kyle wasn't talking like a kid. She said he was talking like he was being told what to do." I felt a chill crawl across my back. "She said she saw his face change. Not physically. Expression. Like someone was wearing his skin from the inside." I told him I didn't want to hear any more. I told him we should leave, go back upstairs, get out of the house, do anything but stay down there. But he grabbed my shoulder. "I need you to listen, because if it's back, it's not just here for you." Those words hit me like a punch. "We're leaving," I said. "Right now." We went upstairs, grabbed the kids, told my mom to pack overnight bags. I didn't know where we were going, just that it had to be away from that house. While my mom hurried the kids outside, my dad stopped me in the hallway. He was staring at the wall again, the one with the streaks. He ran his fingers over one of them. His expression changed. It went pale. "This isn't dirt." "What is it?" I asked. He didn't look at me. "It's the same stuff that was under Kyle's nails the day they found him." I stepped back so fast I almost fell. "What stuff?" He shook his head, like the memory physically hurt him. "Something from the rocks. Something the forensic guy couldn't identify. They said it wasn't mud, wasn't clay, wasn't even organic." Then he met my eyes. "They said it looked like it came from inside the stones." Before I could process that, something upstairs crashed so loud it rattled the ceiling. My mom screamed. My son started crying. My dad shoved me toward the stairs. "Go!" We raced up and found the hallway closet door thrown open, clothes scattered across the floor, and my daughter crying in my mom's arms. My mom kept saying she didn't see anyone, didn't hear anyone, that the door just burst open hard enough to hit the wall. I picked up my daughter, and she clung to me like she was trying to disappear inside my shirt. Her little voice shook when she said, "Someone whispered my name." That did it. We got everyone into the car as fast as we could. My dad locked the house behind us, but before he stepped off the porch, he stopped and looked back through the front window. His face drained of color. I didn't want to look. Every instinct in my body told me, don't. But I did. Inside the house, for just a second, I swear I saw something move past the hallway doorway. Not a person, not an animal, just a shape. Low to the ground, too long, too quick, like something slithering on its limbs instead of walking. We drove to a motel 2 towns over. A cheap one with buzzing lights and an old carpet that smelled like old smoke. But the moment we walked into the room, I felt safer than I had in days. That lasted maybe 20 minutes. Because while the kids were watching cartoons, to calm down, my phone buzzed again. Another motion alert. Hallway camera. I opened it. At first, nothing. Just darkness. Then something stepped into the frame. A figure. Not my brother. Not a person. Something stretched. Bent wrong. Skin grayish and sagging like wet paper. Arms too long, fingertips dragging the floor. Back arched upward, as if its spine had been snapped and healed in a shape that wasn't human. But the face was Kyle's. His eyes were open, but there was nothing behind them. Just emptiness. Like something else was piloting him, using his body like a mask. Then, near the camera, his head snapped toward the lens, hard, like a sudden jolt. And his jaw dropped open wider than a person's jaw should go. And I swear on my life, I saw something inside his mouth move. Not a tongue, not teeth. Something behind them. Something trying to get out. The feed glitched, went black, came back for 1 second. And in that 1 second, I saw a message scrawled across the hallway floor. Fresh, wet, shiny in the camera's static glow. Bring them back. I shut off the feed. But it didn't matter, because a moment later, there was a knock at the motel door. 3 slow knocks. My daughter whispered, "He followed us." I didn't move. None of us did. 3 knocks. Slow, patient. Like whoever was on the other side knew we were in there. Knew we were frozen in place, listening, waiting for them to go away. But they didn't knock again. They didn't have to. My daughter was sitting on the bed next to me, shaking, her eyes locked on the door, like she was watching a wolf sniff at the cracks. My son was crying silently, face buried into my mom's lap, and my dad had his hand on the motel nightstand drawer, where he'd stashed his old .38 from the glove compartment. I leaned in and whispered, "Don't open it." My dad didn't say anything, but his jaw clenched. His eyes weren't on the door. They were on the window next to it. The thin, milky motel curtain was backlit by the porch light. And just faintly, just barely, there was a silhouette standing behind it. A figure, still, arm to the sides, head tilted. Then the voice came. Not from the door, not from outside, from the motel's bathroom. It came from behind the closed door, low and dry and broken. "You left me." My wife screamed. My dad stood up so fast the chair toppled over, and before I could stop him, he yanked open the bathroom door with the gun raised. Nothing. Just the sink, the toilet, the cracked mirror above the faucet, and a line of small, wet footprints leading from the drain in the floor to the center of the room. Bare feet. Kyle's size. That was enough. I grabbed the kids, dragged them into the parking lot. We left everything behind. My wife grabbed the car keys and peeled out of there so fast we nearly took the bumper off a parked sedan. We didn't stop until we reached a 24-hour diner in a nearby town and sat in the parking lot, windows locked, lights off, just breathing. My dad sat in the front seat, eyes hollow. Finally, he said the one thing he'd been avoiding for days. "There's something using him." I didn't ask how he knew. I already did. Somewhere deep down, I'd always known. Since the day I watched Kyle go over that cliff, I felt it. That he didn't fall. That it didn't end there. I said nothing. My mom was crying. Then my dad told me about her, about Kyle's grandmother on our father's side. She died years before Kyle was even born. I barely knew about her, but he said she was obsessed with these old books, folklore, stuff that's not even on the internet anymore. She used to say there were things older than the devil, things that didn't want to be worshipped or prayed to. things that didn't care if you were afraid. She said they just needed a crack, a little split in someone's mind, a place to curl up and hide. Sometimes they found that in kids, especially the ones that were already broken. Kyle started changing when he was 6. My dad said he found him outside one night, standing barefoot in the garden, covered in dirt, talking to nothing. Said Kyle looked up and smiled and said, "I showed it where the soft part is." They thought he was just sleepwalking. Then the dead animals started showing up. Then the cat. Then the dreams. Then me. Kyle wasn't just a bad kid. He was vacant. Like something crawled in through his eyes and locked the real him away. And it never left. When Kyle went over the cliff, my dad said he thought that was the end, that the thing left when Kyle's body broke. But now we knew better. It didn't leave. It waited. And I must have been the only crack left. The next day, we tried to stay in the diner until morning. Caffeine kept us going. We looked like zombies. The kids passed out in the booths. I don't know how many cups of coffee I had before my stomach turned sour. I went into the men's room to throw up. That's when I saw it. On the mirror. In my handwriting. 3 words, written backwards. You promised him. My knees gave out. I wiped it off with a paper towel and didn't tell anyone. We stayed with friends for 2 days. No knocks, no photos, no voices. I thought maybe we escaped it, but it was never about escaping. The 3rd night, I woke up to the feeling I used to have when I was 10. That feeling of being watched. I turned my head and saw the closet door cracked open. Something was in there, not standing, hanging. Its arms were draped over the top shelf like a marionette strung up the wrong way, legs bent sideways, and a smile in the dark. My brother's face, mouth too wide, eyes pulled open, like someone had stitched the lids to his brow, blood dripping from the corners. Then it whispered, "One more." I blinked, and it was gone. But the closet was still open, and on the floor was a Polaroid. This time, it was a photo of my daughter, taken from inside the car. That's when I understood. It wasn't after me anymore. It had followed us long enough. It had waited in the dark corners, tested the doors, spoken through walls. Now, it wanted what it was promised. Another crack. A new vessel. Someone smaller. Softer. Someone it could teach. We left the country. That's why I'm posting this from an old laptop in a rented apartment across the ocean. That's why my kids aren't allowed to be alone. That's why I haven't closed my eyes in 36 hours. Because I know if I do, it'll come back. And this time, it won't ask. It'll take. The thing in my brother's skin is still out there, and it's looking for a new face to wear.